I should start by saying I never believed in any of this. If someone had told me a year ago that shadows, literal shadows, could move on their own, peel themselves out of photographs, and follow you like parasites, I would have laughed. I used to think horror stories were just that, stories. Fiction written for late-night readers who crave adrenaline. But what I'm about to write isn't fiction. I wish it were. This happened to me, and the only way I can even attempt to cope with it is by putting it all down like evidence. Because part of me thinks that maybe if other people know what's happening, I won't be the only one carrying this thing. It started with a box. I was helping clean out my grandmother's old house in rural Pennsylvania after she passed. She'd been a quiet, withdrawn woman, the type who kept her curtains drawn even in the middle of summer. I never visited much as a child because her house always had a suffocating stillness to it, like every room held its breath. When she died, the property fell to my mother, who immediately tasked me with starting the sorting. The house smelled of dust, mothballs, and something sourly sweet I couldn't quite place. The attic was the worst. I'd always hated it as a kid. Narrow wooden steps climbed into a low-ceilinged space lined with cracked plaster walls and rafters that creaked whenever you shifted your weight. But that's where I found the box. It was shoved behind a pile of old trunks, the cardboard yellowed and brittle at the edges. Across the top, in shaky handwriting, someone had scrawled, "Do not open." I laughed when I saw it. Honestly laughed. It felt like the sort of melodramatic thing people write when they're hiding nothing more sinister than old tax documents. But the box was light when I dragged it out, lighter than I expected. Inside, there wasn't much. A stack of old photographs, tied with a frayed ribbon, and a smaller velvet pouch that jingled when I shook it. The pouch held nothing but a cracked silver locket. The photos, though. The photos were strange. At first, they seemed like ordinary black and white portrait from the 1930s or 40s. Family shots. People standing stiffly outside the house I was currently cleaning. Children squinting in church clothes. A man, my great-grandfather, I think, standing ramrod straight with a shotgun balanced across his chest. But when I looked closer, I noticed something off. In nearly every photograph, there was a shadow. Not a normal one. Not one cast by sunlight or lamps. These shadows looked wrong. They stretched in directions that didn't match the light source. In one picture, a little girl held a doll on the front porch. But if you looked just behind her, you could see another silhouette, a tall, thin figure bending unnaturally close, as though whispering in her ear. The ribbon holding the stack together snapped in my hands, brittle with age, and the photos spilled across the attic floor. My heart kicked hard against my ribs as I picked one up after another. Each photo had the same thing. People looking normal, oblivious. And in the background, in the corner on the wall, always a shadow too dark, too sharp, too alive. And then I found the last photo. This one wasn't old at all. It was color glossy. And it was me. It showed me standing in the attic, holding the very box I had just opened. My clothes were the same, my stance identical. But there was no way the photo could have been taken because I hadn't been up there before, not since I was a child. And behind me in the photograph, stretching from the corner of the rafters, was a shape. A black smear of shadow with the faintest outline of fingers curling along the wall. I dropped it. I don't know how long I sat there on the attic floor staring at those photographs, but eventually my phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of the trance. It was my mother asking how the cleanup was going. I told her I'd found some old junk and would bring it down later. That night, in my apartment, I kept thinking about the box. I should have left it. I should have shoved it back into the corner of the attic and pretended I'd never seen it. But instead, I took the photographs home with me. And that was the mistake. The first thing that happened was subtle. I propped a couple of the older photos on my desk, meaning to do some family history research. My desk lamp created a pool of yellow light across the surface, and for a moment I thought my eyes were just tired, because the shadows in the photographs. They seemed darker now, more defined. In one photo of my grandmother as a teenager, she sat smiling stiffly on a porch step. I could swear the long, crooked shadow stretching along the wall behind her had shifted slightly since I'd first seen it, like its head had tilted. The next day, when I looked again, the shadow wasn't on the wall anymore. It was at her feet. I laughed it off at first. Old photos do weird things, I told myself. Exposure, degradation, trick of the light. But then I began to notice things outside of the photographs. My apartment felt heavier. Corners looked darker than they should have been, even with the lights on. I started hearing faint sounds like soft shuffling just outside my bedroom door at night. Once I woke up convinced someone was standing at the foot of my bed, but when I turned on the lamp, no one was there. The photographs seemed to multiply. I know that doesn't make sense, but it's the truth. I only brought home maybe 20 pictures, but by the end of that week, I counted 30, then 35. Some of them were duplicates. The same image, but slightly different. In one, my grandmother's face was blurred, like she turned her head mid-shot, even though I knew the original didn't look that way. In another, the tall shadow in the background was closer to the foreground than before. By the seventh day, I had stopped sleeping, and then I took the photo. It was unintentional. I was scrolling through my phone late at night, trying to distract myself, when I accidentally flipped into the front-facing camera. My own face appeared on the screen, pale and sleepless. I took a quick picture without thinking, and when I looked at it, my stomach flipped. Behind me, though my apartment wall should have been blank, there was a figure, a shape darker than the shadows around it. A crooked silhouette bending toward me, its arms stretched along the wall like it was pulling itself out. I deleted it immediately, or tried to, but when I opened my gallery again the next morning, the photo was still there. And worse, there were more. Dozens. Hundreds. Every angle of my apartment, as if someone, something, had been taking pictures while I slept. And in every single one, the shadow was closer. The last photo I looked at made my blood run cold. It was of me sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my phone exactly as I was in that moment. And behind me, right behind my shoulder, was a hand. Long, black, curling fingers reaching toward my face. I swear, even as I write this, I can feel it watching from the corners of the room. And this is only the beginning. Oh, real danger. I didn't sleep after what happened that night with a photograph. Every time I closed my eyes, the afterimage of that warped black shadow clung to the back of my eyelids. I would see the grin, that stretched too wide grin, hovering behind the woman in the old Polaroid, the edges of its face bleeding into the darkness like ink dropped in water. But here's the worst part. When morning came, I tried to prove to myself that I was imagining things. I pulled the box of photos from the closet again, spread them across my bed, and flipped through them under the full light of day. The thing was still there. It wasn't just the one photograph anymore. In nearly every photo, tucked in the background, sometimes obvious and sometimes barely visible at the edges, there was movement, a shape, a smear of black darker than the shadows around it. While I leaned in close, I could make out features. A face. A grin. The pictures weren't static anymore. I don't know how else to say it. They shifted. One Polaroid of my mom holding me as a baby. The background was supposed to be the living room wall. But when I looked longer, I realized there was a faint outline of something crawling along the ceiling above her head. Another of my grandparents smiling on their porch. A figure in the window behind them had its hand pressed against the glass. And the worst was one from a birthday party I barely remembered. A bunch of kids, me included, grinning with cake smeared across our faces. The shadow stood directly behind me, looming. Its grin mirrored mine, except its teeth were jagged, too long, and they didn't belong in the mouth of anything human. I dropped the photos, scrambled back, and just sat on the floor staring at them like they might leap at me. And then, God help me, I swear one of the shadows moved its head. That day, I started noticing flickers in my house. Not lights going out, not at first. More like the edges of things dimmed, the corners of my vision going black for half a second. Every reflective surface in the house started to bother me. Mirrors, windows, even the black screen of the TV when it was off. Sometimes I'd catch what looked like a smear of darkness crawling across the surface, too quick to focus on, but definitely there. At night, the photos whispered. Not words, more like the crinkle of paper shifting when no one's touching it. I left them stacked on my dresser, but sometimes when I woke up, they'd be spread out again, laid perfectly neat in a grid, every single one showing me that same grin. One morning, I was stupid enough to try something. I took a picture of myself with my phone, just a simple mirror selfie, hoping maybe I'd prove to myself it was confined to the old film photos. When I opened it, I froze. In the reflection over my shoulder, something was peeking out from behind my closet door. A face stretched thin, pale as paper, with eyes so dark they were just holes. Its grin cut across nearly half its face. The closet door in the actual room was closed. Completely closed. But in the picture, it wasn't. I deleted it instantly. But I swear for the rest of that day, I kept hearing the faint creak of the closet door hinges, like it wanted to open even when I wasn't near it. That night was the first time I saw it outside the photographs. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of scratching. Not like an animal, it was slower, more deliberate. I sat up, straining to listen. It came from the corner of the room, and when my eyes adjusted to the dark, I saw it. Not fully, not like a body standing there, but a smear of black against black, crawling upward across the wall, pulling itself into the shadowed corner near the ceiling. Its grin floated first, then the rest of its head followed, twisting at an angle too sharp for a neck. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. The shadow clung there, limbs bending wrong, too many joints. Its head snapped downward toward me, and though it didn't move closer, I knew it was watching. I must have passed out at some point, because when I woke, the thing was gone. But the photographs on my dresser had all shifted again, and now, in every single one, the shadow wasn't in the background anymore. It was closer, always directly behind me. I think. No, I know now. The shadows aren't just in the photographs. They come out of them. And each time I look, each time I notice them, they notice me more. They're getting closer frame by frame. And I don't think they're going back. I hadn't touched my camera for nearly 2 weeks. After what happened in the basement, after watching those shadows peel themselves off old photographs and writhe across the walls like smoke, I couldn't bring myself to even look at a lens. But the problem wasn't just the camera anymore. The problem followed me into the ordinary, into every reflective surface. At first, it was small things, catching a glimpse of something moving just as I turned my head, seeing shapes where there shouldn't have been shapes. But soon, the shadows began to inhabit the photos themselves, even the ones I hadn't taken. I noticed it while scrolling through my phone one night, sleepless and trembling, forcing myself to believe I had imagined it all. A picture of me and my friend Emma at a diner months earlier, two smiling faces leaning over greasy plates, the neon light from the window behind us casting a cheap glow. Except when I looked at it again, Emma's face wasn't there. It was just gone, not blurred, not glitched, just a hollow shape where her face should have been, like someone had cut her out of the picture with scissors. My own face was still intact, but I looked wrong, my mouth too wide, the corners twitching upward in a smile I swear I hadn't made. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. I went through the gallery frantically, opening one photo after another. My cousin's graduation photo, her face gone erased. A group photo at work, two people missing entirely, their bodies still there, but their heads blank, featureless ovals of pale skin. And in every single one, no matter how far back I went, my face was there. But altered, warped. My smile always just a little too wide. My eyes too sharp. It was like someone or something was rewriting my life through the photographs, stealing the people around me and leaving me behind, grinning like a corpse. The next morning, I called Emma. Her phone rang twice, then cut to voicemail. I tried again, and again. By the fifth attempt, my chest was tight. I decided to drive to her place, just to reassure myself that she was fine, that the photo was just some cruel glitch. When I got there, her apartment door was unlocked. The kind of unlocked where the latch doesn't even catch. The TV was on, flickering static. Her keys were on the counter. Her phone, too, still buzzing with the missed calls I had left. But Emma herself was gone. No note, no sign of struggle. Just absence, like she had walked out in the middle of breathing. And on her fridge, held up by a magnet, was a photo of us. Well, I didn't remember being taken. I was smiling in it, of course, that horrible stretch smile. But Emma's face, her whole head, was nothing but static blur, as if she had been erased from existence. That night, I dreamed of the attic again. Dust swirling. The old box of photographs yawning open like a mouth. Except this time, instead of shadows crawling out, the photographs themselves began to tear, crumbling into ash. And every time one burned away, I saw a memory flicker and die in my mind. Faces gone, moments I couldn't recall anymore. Like someone was gutting me from the inside out, memory by memory. When I woke up, I couldn't remember Emma's voice anymore. The fear wasn't just supernatural anymore. It was existential. It was as though the photographs were rewriting reality, consuming people, erasing them completely. And it was happening faster now. I dug through old photo albums at my parents' house the next day, desperate for confirmation. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. But the photos were changing too. My mom's wedding album. My father was a blur in every picture. Family vacations, my brother vanished, leaving me posed beside empty beach towels, empty roller coaster seats. And in every single one, I was still there. Always there. Always smiling wider than I should. I asked my mom where Dad was. Her face went blank. "What do you mean?" she asked. "It's always just been you and me." The words hit me like a hammer. I knew my father. I remembered his voice, his laugh. I remembered him teaching me how to ride a bike, how he used to clap me on the shoulder. But my mother, she looked at me with the confusion of someone staring at a stranger. To her, he never existed. I ran out of the house shaking. That night, I couldn't stop staring at my walls, plastered with photos I'd taken years ago. Landscapes, friends, family, moments frozen in time. Except they weren't moments anymore. They were hollow spaces. People disappeared from them one by one, their faces peeled away. Sometimes whole bodies went missing, leaving me alone in the frame. Alone, but always smiling too wide. And then I noticed something new, something worse. The shadows weren't just crawling out of the photographs anymore. They were crawling into them. I saw it happen. I swear I did. A ripple through the air like heat off asphalt, and then a shadowy figure folding itself into the glossy surface of a picture pinned above my desk. The photo had been of me and Emma. But when the shadow melted into it, the picture changed. Emma vanished. My smile stretched even wider. My eyes looked hungry, and in the glossy reflection of the photo, I could swear I saw something behind me, standing just over my shoulder. By the end of that week, I had no photos left with people in them. Not one. Every frame, every album, every folder on my phone emptied. It was only me now. Me, and that smile that wasn't mine. But I wasn't alone. Not really. Because every time I walked past a mirror, every time I saw my reflection faintly in a window, I noticed it, the shadow figure behind me, closer than before. Watching me. Smiling too. And I realized with a kind of hollow horror that I was next. Not to be erased. Not to be consumed. But to become the one smiling in every photograph. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already too far gone. I had tried everything, throwing out photographs, burning them in the kitchen sink, even smashing digital files with hammers of logic and software. Nothing worked. Every time I destroyed an image, another appeared. Every time I thought a memory had survived, a person had vanished from it. The shadows were not content to remain inside their frames. They had begun rewriting reality itself, and I was the only one left who could see it. I bought a box, a metal, lockable, industrial-grade box. I stuffed every photograph I could find into it. Old Polaroids, printed images from my phone, family albums, every image of every person I had ever known. I locked it and put it in the deepest closet in my apartment. For one night, I slept without nightmares. But the following morning, I woke to find the box open. Every photograph was on the floor, perfectly spaced, every shadow in the background closer than it had been before. I hadn't touched them. I hadn't even left the apartment. I didn't need to look at them to feel it. They were aware. And then I noticed the first subtle change in my apartment. The light fixtures didn't look right. The angle of the sunlight through the window was off. Furniture was shifted just slightly, as if the world itself had been re-photographed, re-rendered by some unseen hand. The shadows were rewriting everything, and I was trapped in the frame. I thought I was imagining it until the scratching started. It began at the wall nearest my bed. At first, it was faint, almost like the scuffing of claws against plaster. But by midnight, I could hear fingers dragging along the corners of my ceiling. Then, the shadows moved into the air itself. I saw it first as a flicker. The corner of the room darkened unnaturally, and the air itself seemed to bend. The shadows pooled, curling across the floor like smoke. And then, For the first time, I felt it touch me. Cold, thin, not a hand, not a limb, but a pressure like a dark weight pressing into my chest. I gasped and stumbled backward. My eyes caught the glint of a photograph on the floor. And there, emerging from the frame, was a figure, not just a shadow, but a thing with substance. A twisted, elongated version of me smiling, the grin stretching impossibly wide, eyes hollow black. It reached for me, and I ran. By the third night, nothing was stable. The photographs now showed things that hadn't happened. My childhood home appeared burned down in one, though it still stood in reality. My friends from high school were depicted in their graves, though I knew they were alive. And the shadows were always present, moving closer with each new, altered photo. I tried taking photographs of the shadows themselves to prove they existed. The camera refused. Every shot came out blank or showed only me, grinning too wide, my eyes unnaturally dark, with a shadowed figure bending over my shoulder. I began to notice subtle changes in myself. My reflection sometimes blinked when I didn't. My smile stretched slightly when no one was looking. Sometimes I would wake up with the corners of my mouth aching, as if I had been smiling in my sleep. I was becoming like them. It was the fourth night when it fully crossed into my reality. I woke to the sound of hundreds of camera shutters going off around me. Phones, tablets, old Polaroids, flashes everywhere. Every reflective surface in my apartment caught glimpses of the same figure. Thin, black, impossibly tall, smiling wider than any human could. It crawled from the photographs. It didn't move like a person. Limbs bent at impossible angles. It fell to the floor and slithered toward me like liquid shadow. I grabbed the closest object, a chair, and swung it. The shadow recoiled, but only briefly, leaving a smear of darkness across the wall. Then it reformed, and I realized I couldn't fight it. Every time I tried, I was in the photos. Every photo, every frame. My face was already smiling too wide, my eyes too sharp. The shadows were rewriting me from the inside out. I don't know how much longer I have. I write this in the only light I can trust. A single lamp, low wattage, casting no shadows. I've covered every reflective surface. I've sealed the photos back in the metal box, though I know it will not hold them forever. The shadows are patient. They always are. I see them now in the corners of my eyes, even when I close my eyes. They whisper in silence, a rustling sound, a soft click like a camera shutter. And every time I hear it, I feel myself changing. I am smiling, too wide, too sharp, and I know what comes next. Because the shadows do not just consume. They replace. And soon, the photographs will be full. With me. I don't know how to begin this. By now, I have no doubt the shadows are watching me as I write. Every glance out of the corner of my eyes reminds me that they are patient, meticulous, and utterly unstoppable. When I first encountered the photographs, I thought they were merely strange, perhaps cursed, relics from my grandmother's past. Something that could be locked away, discarded, or destroyed. I was wrong. They are alive. The last week has been a waking nightmare. The shadows are no longer content to remain in the photographs. They inhabit the air itself. In the apartment, corners stretch unnaturally, ceilings dip where they shouldn't, and the faintest shimmer along walls shows their movement before they reveal themselves fully. I hear them whispering now, just beneath the threshold of sound. When I strain to listen, it sounds like hundreds of cameras clicking over and over, counting down to something I can't yet comprehend. I try to fight it. Fire, knives, flashlights, screaming. Nothing works. When I burn a photograph, I can feel a presence move away, but it always reforms, always closer. Sometimes I wake to find photographs I didn't take sitting neatly in the places I burned them. And in every one, I'm grinning wider than I ever could in reality, my eyes hollow, staring back at me with a terrible, alien awareness. It's no longer just photographs. Memories are fading. Voices vanish. Faces of people I love vanish. Emma, my family, my friends. Some of them I cannot remember now except through these images. And the shadows, the things behind me in every photo, grow bolder, leaning forward as if eager to pull me fully into the frame. 2 nights ago, I slept in the living room, thinking I could avoid the corners of my bedroom where the shadows always seemed to gather. I woke at 2:17 a.m. to the sensation of something crawling across my chest. Not a person, not an animal. A cold, spreading weight like black liquid seeping into me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My phone, which I had been clutching, slipped from my hands and fell to the floor. In the dim light, I saw the first figure step out from a photograph on the wall. A full body now, thin, elongated, a smile stretching impossibly across its face, limbs bending in angles that were not human. It reached toward me, and I could feel the cold, the impossibility. And in that instant, I understood this shadow wasn't just a creature. It was a recorder, a replacement mechanism. It didn't merely exist in the photo. It replaced the life of the person in it, one frame at a time. If it touches you, it doesn't kill you. It copies you. And what remains is not alive. Not fully. I've tried leaving the apartment. I've tried driving to other cities. But the shadows follow. Every reflective surface, every photo, even ones in the clouds above, pictures on billboards, screens in stores, they are there. Yesterday, I stopped in a cafe to eat. I looked down at my coffee, and there was a reflection in the dark liquid. Myself, but standing behind me, towering, smiling, watching. I turned. Nobody. I looked again. The reflection smiled wider. I'm starting to see it even when I close my eyes. In the dark, the corners of my vision. My mind keeps fabricating frames, images of me where I don't exist. Sometimes I wake to find myself photographed asleep, my phone or a hidden camera capturing images I never took. And in every single image, I am smiling, my eyes hollow, staring at something beyond the frame that I cannot see but instinctively fear. Last night, I confronted them. I gathered every photograph I could find, stacked them in the middle of my living room floor. I poured lighter fluid over them, intending to destroy them all at once. As the first flame caught the edges of the photos, the room went silent. The flickering shadows froze. And then I saw them, not just in the photographs, but in the air, crawling along the walls, pooling like oil around my feet, twisting and writhing as if drawn to the fire. And then I saw my own photograph. It had appeared in the center of the pile I set ablaze. My face grinning, eyes hollow, impossibly wide smile, my reflection staring back at me. I knew then I was already halfway in the photograph. Not fully yet, but enough that the shadows knew. Enough that I could not escape. I tried to run. I tried to smash the photograph with a chair. But the fire died before it could consume it. The shadows flowed into the photograph, and I felt the first part of me being pulled into the frame. My body fell to the floor, my mouth locked in a smile I didn't make. I don't know if I'm writing this from inside the frame or outside of it. I feel the edges of the paper beneath my fingers. Or are they my fingers? The shadows have surrounded me, pressing in, whispering with thousands of clicking cameras. And I know they will succeed. If you ever find a photograph, if you ever notice something off in a picture, a shadow, a smile too wide, eyes too sharp, do not look away. Do not take another picture. Do not attempt to destroy it. Because once it notices you, it will follow. Once it touches you, it will copy you. And what remains behind will not be you. I can feel the last of myself slipping. I am smiling, and I am not alone.